There are different types of execution properties. So first of all, we need to specify process variables and message times. Coming back to our order to cache example, this means specifying a process variable to store every data object. For example, a process variable to store the purchase order as soon as we receive it from the customer. Now, why do we need process variables? We need them to allow handover of work. So once we have received the purchase order, then we store this information into a process variable such that it can be used by the first task, check stock availability. Similarly, for all the messages that are sent and received, we need to specify their content, which we call type. The BPMN 2.0 specification defines the type of data objects by means of the XML schema specification. However, this is the default choice, but BPMSs can also deviate from this default option. So for example, Oracle BPM or IBM BPM utilize JavaScript variables rather than XML schema, whereas Bizagi utilizes their proprietary variable types. So the second type of execution properties is the variables at the level of tasks and events, and their mappings to process variables. These are called data inputs and data outputs. So data inputs grab the content pretty much from process variables and are used to pass the required input date for a task to be executed. So for example, we need to define a data input for check stock availability to contain information from the purchase order. And here we may actually need to specify a data assignment, because in order to check stock availability, we do not require the full content of the purchase order, but rather only the product type and the number of items required. So similarly, a data output is a task level variable that will store the content that will need to be copied out into another process variable. So this could be a variable for containing the stock availability amount. So for example, an integer containing the number of items in stock for that particular product. So that upon task completion, the content of this data output can be copied into a process variable. Then we need to specify service details. So here the assumption is that any system that is available outside the BPMS and to which the BPMS needs to interact needs to expose its operation, like checking stock availability, by means of a service interface that, according to the BPMN 2.0 standard, needs to be specified in WSDO. So the idea is that we get the service interface, and from this service interface we can automatically build a service task stub that will interact with the external service. So for example, if it is a service task, we'll grab the content of the output data and copy that into a message that will be sent out through the particular service interface to the external system.